Okay, so chemical weathering, it alters the internal structure of minerals. Elements are removed or added. Original rock is transformed into new stable material. So the example of this process is you must have seen or observed in your own life. One example is oxidation of iron based material, for instance, a nail. So if you leave that nail out in the open environment, over the time you will see that a layer of rust starts to develop on this nail, and that layer of rust develops due to oxidation of this iron based material. So the iron in the nail will starts to oxidize, it become iron oxide, and that is that brown or red colored rust that you will see start forming on the surface of this nail, and that is basically chipping away this iron from the chemical composition of this iron based nail. So as it is losing the iron, it will start to disintegrate, and this disintegration is based on the chemical process or oxidation. And another common process that leads to weathering is this presence of carbonic acid. So this carbon dioxide, as it dissolves in water, then it forms this weak acid called carbonic acid. Uh, so chemical weathering. So one is due to oxidation, another is due to presence of carbonic acid, and carbonic acid is H2CO3. So oxidation, we saw one example, iron plus oxygen, and this oxygen is coming from water or the moisture in the atmosphere. So this is Fe2O3, some kind of, and this is your rust. So this is what happens in the case of oxidation. This is how it leads to the breakdown or weathering of any metal based material. And carbonic acid, it is also simple H2O. You can think about it as a rainwater, and we know that we have CO2 in the atmosphere. So when rainwater falls through the atmosphere, then it combines with carbon dioxide which is present in the atmosphere, and then it will give rise to this H2CO3, and this H2CO3 will break down into H plus hydrogen or proton and HCO3 negative. Right, so this is an acid because it is producing proton here. So this is a very strong acid. The proton itself, it says a very strong acid. Eventually it will combine with other material and it will break them down. So first understand this, how this comes into existence. The H2O from rainwater, it combines with CO2 in air, and then it will make H2CO3, and then this H2CO3 will break down into this strong acid H plus and SCO3 negative. So these are the two common example of chemical weathering that you will see or observe in nature or natural system. So this is what it is explained here. So now here is an example that how it breaks down the mineral in the rock. Okay, so now let's go to this example. Now we will look at this example here. So the rain will dissolve some carbon dioxide as it falls through the atmosphere. So now think about a rock, the continental rock. We talked about it earlier that it is mostly felsic. It will have potassium ion or sodium ion or calcium ion, and it is combined with silica, right? So the felsic rock, or this is your continental rock or crust, you could say, and this is rich in potassium, sodium, calcium, and plus it has silica, right? Silica. So what will happen is this H plus will, this is also a cation, right? All of these are cations. What will happen that this H plus will knock off this potassium or sodium or calcium from the chemical structure of this felsic rock. And when this potassium, because if you remember, your tetrahedron are bonded together by means of some cations, right? You remember that from chapter 1 minerals, how they are connected. So what it will do is it will attack on this potassium or any other sodium or calcium cations, and that will make them lose the silica, will become lose this silica. So this is how it will disintegrate these felsic rock. So that is a type of chemical weathering where the chemical structure of original rock is being altered by this H plus ion, and this H plus is coming from this rainwater combining with CO2 in the air. And this is why it is a big concern that weathering is being accelerated as we have more and more carbon dioxide adding into the atmosphere. So more and more rainwater is becoming acidic, and this acidity of the rainwater will continue to increase. It will become more and more acidic as we have more and more CO2 being added in the atmosphere, and that will continue to increase the weathering process. It will accelerate it, and this what we have now left is from this weathering process we have silica left separately, and then we have feldspar or the potassium ion or the cations. This will just simply flow away with river water, right? So we are talking about continental rock. So whenever this reaction will occur, this will remove potassium ion, and the potassium ion will become part of the river water, and then it will just continue to go with the river water or become absorbed. In lots of cases it will be absorbed by the plants for their nutrition, and this silica may be in some cases combine again, then make a new type of rock in the pores. So in the soil you have silica here, it's sitting here, and it can make a new kind of rock called chert in some cases. In some cases it may also, silica can also continue to flow with river and fall into the ocean, and there in the silica will be used by the marine organism to make a shell for their body. So we will see more in detail about marine organism, how they wear a kind of a shell, like you must have seen a snail, how they are covered in a shell. Their soft body is covered in a shell, and that shell is in carbonate in nature, silica or calcium carbonate. So similarly this silica provides a raw material for those marine organisms to form their shell. Quartz, that is another a very stable mineral, which is also part of this felsic rock. So during this disintegration we saw that potassium silicate, they will flow with river. Quartz being very resistant to this further disintegration, they will continue to remain in its form, and they will become part of the sand on the surface of Earth, our planet. I think that's all we have for weathering. Please refer to Smart Figure 2.14, 16 and 17 in your textbook to further understand these concepts.